Chief Justice John Roberts, he blocked the block, if you will. He paused the order for the Trump administration. But why don't we explain it? Let's go back a little bit and realize how we got to the Supreme Court. And this is the first big moment the Supreme Court has weighed into one of these Trump cost-cutting moments.
The Trump administration, specifically in this case, the State Department, was sued in the district court in Washington, D.C. And there, a judge put in a TRO, temporary restraining order, on them cutting about $1.9 to $2 billion in aid. This was a part of that funding freeze. Now, the Trump administration did an emergency appeal to the Supreme Court, and just last night, we received an order from the Chief Justice, who oversees the District of Columbia as one of the appellate districts. And so what he said is that lower court temporary restraining order is stayed. So now it's a stay of a TRO. One was blocking the aid. The other allows them to continue to freeze that funding while we look for more action from the Supreme Court. The opposing party in this has until Friday at noon, so tomorrow, February 28th at noon Eastern time, to respond to the emergency application filed by the State Department in this. And then we will see if it gets further reviewed by the full court, if they docket it and take it into consideration for an oral argument, if there's another order that comes out, or if they just let this stand.
The American people should be aware of this particular contest. It's a contest between unelected bureaucratic power vis-a-vis the elected representatives of the American people. And so the Democrats have made a huge case during the last election claiming that they favored democracy. Well, if you are focused on democracy, President Trump was elected to do precisely what he is now doing.
One of the basic fights here is that if Congress has appropriated discretionary spending, then what many people are saying is that then the executive branch is obligated to spend every penny, even if it's discretionary, not allocated to a specific line item, just maybe, for world hunger relief or for health services abroad or something that's very generic. And then the bureaucracy gets to pick and choose which grants are given, or just federal foreign aid grant money, a big bucket of money that can then be discretionally spent by the bureaucrats. So that's kind of a little bit also to that point where some of the argument is that the people that are bringing this are trying to make it a separation of powers fight between Congress and the president, and therefore the third co-equal branch, the judiciary, would be the arbiter of those issues in that situation. But Professor Hutchison, I want to go back to something you brought up. Was part of the problem is that, Democrats this last election were all about democracy. We've heard them push for change in previous administrations. But in reality, big government, whether Republican or Democrat, have enabled the non-elected, non-constitutional fourth branch of government, the bureaucracy. And what their entire goal has been is that there'd be continuity no matter who was elected, no matter who was in Congress, who was the president. They never actually believed in change. What they wanted was continuity by empowering the bureaucracy to continue spending money to further their political agendas to no end.
A left-winger made precisely that argument, that the fourth branch of government is designed to protect our democracy by ensuring continuity with respect to policy. But that analysis is exactly backward, because if there is a dispute between Congress and the president, clearly courts, including the United States Supreme Court, should weigh in. But that's not really what's happening. It's the bureaucrats that are weighing in. It's the bureaucrats and their surrogates that are weighing in. They're saying they have a constitutional/legal right to money that was appropriated by Congress. Well, if Congress disagrees with what President Trump is doing, absolutely Congress has the right to go to court and ask an Article 3 judge to resolve this dispute. But that is precisely what is not going on in these cases.
What the executive branch is arguing is that you're appropriating money for these causes, but that doesn't mean we have to give the grant to these individual organizations that believe things contrary to the American people. And we don't have to fulfill many of these grants to their fullness when it's going against, or it's wasteful, or it's abusive of the system. And you even see that with the EPA grants, that under the law, the Inflation Reduction Act, there was a big pool of $20 billion that the Biden administration got that went to climate groups to fight for climate activism and justice. That didn't specify which groups got it. Stacey Abrams had a group that she started, very famous out of Georgia, losing the governorship and never conceding. Her group got a $2 billion grant, so 10% of that pool of money. At the time when they received that grant promise, they only had $100 in the bank account. So that's what is being pointed out, is that these funds aren't necessarily even going to what Congress intended, and that's why they're trying to clean it up. But guess who's upset about that? The groups that are trying to get the money.
We know that when the U.S. gets involved and tries to fund a lot of these humanitarian efforts, we know a lot of the humanitarian efforts themselves, the finances are not going to the right people. They are not going to, a lot of times, to feed children, to help people, to build orphanages or build children's homes. We're involved directly with some of those groups and charities that we support here individually, not through the USAID. And we know, because we can actually see it. We've sent people to make sure that things are getting taken care of. Because just like what you said, they'll send aid money in quotes, and it goes to usually to line the pockets of somebody.
And I think we should always distinguish charitable foreign aid with government foreign aid. And while they've tried to blur the lines by giving grants to a lot of NGOs, which in and of itself is a hilarious distinction, that many of these NGOs, non-government organizations, couldn't exist without government money. So they're quasi-government organizations is really what they should be called. But to your point, Richard, there's a lot of criticism, especially in more conservative circles, about government foreign aid. That what does it do? It props up dictatorships. It's used as nation building. It's used as a control mechanism over corrupt countries. And that typically the money, because it's funneled through government to government, doesn't reach the people in need and funds a lot of pet projects.
And we're finding out a lot of these organizations, a lot of them don't have websites. There's no checks and balances that are happening. They're just getting carte blanche.